Nick Digilio's here. Hi, buddy.
Hey, man. How are you?
What's the new podcast?
Today, it just dropped today. I can't believe it. How does that happen?
The miracle continues.
It's amazing. Every Friday and Tuesday, the Nick D podcast drops. And today, Eric Childress and Steve Cochran are with me to review some of the new movies. And Esmeralda Leon and I talk about spring going into summer and how we're both like too old and grumpy to go to idiotic outdoor concerts and festivals.
You know, it used to be a thing. And I don't know when it ends. I think like most things, it ends when you turn 50. But, my friend Kathleen Madigan talks about this.
She's so good.
It's like, you're 21 years old. Somebody says it's nickel beer night in Columbus, Ohio. You go, get in the VW.
Let's
We're
go.
going. You're 50 years old, and somebody says, I got front row for the Stones, and it's across the street. And you go, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've never been a fan of like outdoor festivals. Like the idea of spending a lot of time with a bunch of sweaty jackasses.
That's a band I was in, the Sweaty Jackasses.
Yeah, it is.
I feel like you have to just maneuver around the sweaty jackasses
too many
so
of
you
them.
can spend some time just without them around you. Because I feel the same way. I love a good outdoor festival.
Yeah.
But it's, when you get older, you're like, man, do I really want to go? But I go and I still like it.
Yeah, not
No,
me.
not you.
The Sweaty Jackasses will be performing live.
So
I was not in that band.
but that's
what about the SNL podcast?
The SNL podcast this week is, because I record them. This week is, it's Jocks hosting SNL. Both good and bad. Like because it's always interesting when they have, like, when Lauren does stunt casting and he brings in like a politician or somebody who's not,
Right.
who hosts. And
Peyton Manning was brilliant.
That's the
Who
number.
was bad?
There are so many.
Give me one that was
on
bad.
on the podcast. I do 5. I talk about 5.
I don't think Michael was good, and I love Michael, but Michael can't act.
I thought Michael was good. Jordan?
Yeah,
I thought it was good. But I thought he was good. I thought the show was great, and he kind of stepped up. Like the Stuart Smalley thing was hilarious. The Stuart Smalley thing was hilarious. Also, I love that episode just in general. It was one of the greatest and one of the blackest episodes of SNL ever because Public Enemy was the musical group. And they did Can't Trust It. And then they did a Nat X thing. And Jesse Jackson did Weekend Update and read Green Eggs and Ham. And just that alone.
And then he took 2 more years off before they put black people on.
Yeah. But the other one, the bad?
Yeah, bad.
Michael Phelps, unwatchable.
Oh, that's right. He was
Unwatchable.
bad.
Ronda Rousey, awful.
Oh, Ronda Rousey.
Awful.
Ronda Rousey was on that week that she did SNL because she was plugging that on with me on the radio and plugging her book. And she yawned in the middle of the interview.
No.
Yeah, and I said,
Great.
I said, listen, am I keeping you up? Because we're here to plug what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that, like she is now, she's with the WWE. She's a pro wrestler. And
I did not know that.
More than 50% of being a very entertaining and great pro wrestler is you got to be good on the mic. You got to be able to cut promos.
Sure.
She's awful.
Yeah, she's boring.
Awful. She's fine in the ring, she's okay.
Well, that's what she got so far.
But she can't even speak on the mic. And then the other one that I focus on that's really terrible because there's Ronda Rousey and there's Michael Phelps and Lance Armstrong. Unbelievably bad.
Yeah, it was bad.
But Peyton Manning,
But he wasn't
Is he
juicing.
number one best?
well, one of the.
Give us
Peyton
another
Manning,
He's
best.
up
listen,
there.
if you're going
He's
to
up
look at
there.
if you're going to look at one clip, I mean, listen to Nick's podcast, but if you're going to look at one clip, look at Peyton Manning coaching juniors in football.
United Way.
The United Way kids?
Yep.
Yeah,
I play the whole
kids.
thing. I play the whole thing on
Little
my podcast.
kids in football.
Yep.
It's hysterical. Now, is there the backstory for people that know that sketch? Those kids aren't good enough actors to take a football and fall down in real time.
No, he gunned the football at them.
Yes.
He did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Quit whining. Get up.
Was there any fallout from that?
No. Everybody. Well, of course, the parents were thrilled. Yeah, throw ahead. Yeah, throw a ball at my kid.
Stage parents, yeah.
Yeah, break my kid's teeth. It doesn't matter. But I love my favorite part of that is like, just you get out of my face because he's disappointed that the kid dropped the ball after he gunned it at him, and he's like 9-10 years old. Go in the porta potty, and he makes the kid stay in the porta potty
For the rest of the practice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the best sketch of that show, and that show was strong. And his brother's also great.
Yeah.
On SNL. Those guys are, and I'll tell you who else was great. Mr. Taylor Swift was very good when he
Travis
hosted.
Kelce's episode was good.
He was terrific.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah,
really
no
terrific.
doubt about it.
Yeah.
But all of those guys have personality, which you would think, okay, they have a personality outside the sport that they do. You already like them, and so they're able to sort of move into this character that they need to be and have fun.
Well, it
and the ones
depends
that you
on-
said were bad seem to me that they don't have a big personality.
Well, I mean, some people are cut out for it, and some people aren't.
Right.
And you got to do more than just be one character on SNL, and a lot of people can't do it. And it's not even like Robert De Niro is a terrible host for SNL,
right?
And he's considered one of the greatest actors of all time. It's a completely different talent, a completely different thing that you have to do when you're doing
Everybody
SNL.
who has ever done the show and come back to host the show said it's the hardest thing they've ever done.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, there are certain people who are cut out for it. For instance, like who could have been like really great cast members. And why am I blanking on the girl's name from who just hosted a few weeks ago from she's on that stupid show about the Italian beef, The Bear.
She was great.
Oh, she was great.
She's a stand-up.
Phenomenal.
She's a stand-up comic.
Yeah, and she was in Bottoms, which is one of the funniest movies ever. She could have been a cast member.
Yeah.
Emma Stone is spectacular on SNL.
Yep.
Adam Driver, amazing on SNL. There are people who are talented actors who can actually do. It takes a different. It's a completely different talent.
And to be able to handle the pressure and just go from one sketch to the next over and over again.
Yeah.
So,
Girl's
and
name
even
is
though people
Iowa
who aren't,
Debris.
even though people who aren't necessarily cut out for it end up being great. Like for instance, I don't think at any time Christopher Walken is aware that he's even on stage, and he's fantastic when he hosts. But that's the thing; like he's looking at the monitor, going, "I need more cowbell," and not knowing what the hell is happening on stage.
Yeah.
nobody reads the monitor harder
Nobody
than Christopher Walken.
or funnier.
Just stares at it.
Yeah. But anyway, my podcasts are available at radiomisfits.com, the Nick D podcast, and that show hasn't been funny in years. Radiomisfits.com and everywhere you get your podcasts.
We'll come back. You'll talk about some current movies.
Yeah.
And also, I want you to plug this classic cinemas thing you have coming up.
I've got some movies that I'm going to be hosting.
Nick Digilio is here. I'll give you the movie. You give me their review. Godzilla Kong.
The New Empire.
That's the rest of the title?
Yeah. Okay, so, I mean, I'm a Godzilla fanatic, and I love Godzilla
Tom
movies.
is as well, right?
Yeah.
Aren't you Godzilla nuts?
We're both ridiculous Godzilla fans.
crazy.
In fact, there's a Godzilla Fest that's happening at the Music Box in June, where they're showing, 40 movies in, a week and a half, and they're doing 16 movies back-to-back in a 24-hour kaiju festival.
Okay.
It's going to be spectacular. But the thing is, it's weird that this movie has the horrible timing of coming out right after Godzilla -1, which just won an Academy Award for special effects, but is also a spectacular movie, like a great movie, like a really, really great movie. Not just a good, goofy Godzilla movie, but technically a phenomenal movie and one of the best movies last year. And this movie has the timing's not so good because this is a really stupid movie, but it's fun. So the Japanese productions of Godzilla movies are normally considered better and more serious. And the American ones, the ones that kind of got rejuvenated about 10 years ago by Legendary Pictures and Warner Brothers with an American cast and American directors, they're fine and they've got the CGI effects and whatever. Some are good, some are better than others. And the King Kong movies that they've been doing, like Skull Island from a few years ago, was great. Some of them are good, some are bad. This one's in the middle. So basically, you've got really terrific actors doing really stupid things because they're clearly just taking the check for this. But the point is, do Godzilla and do King Kong kick massive ass in this? And they do. The last 40 minutes of the movie is spectacular. They basically destroy every pyramid in Egypt at one point in this movie, and it's awesome. So if you can make it through the first hour, the last 40 minutes is amazing, and see it on the loudest and biggest screen possible, because that's the way to see it, because it's meant to be seen in IMAX. So if you're a Godzilla fan, you're a King Kong fan, there's great destruction in it. It's just dumb.
But now you got to. No, but thank you for the warning. So now we know. About an hour in, we're going to get what we want.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, the last 40 minutes is spectacular, and I mean, but I had a good time. I had a good time. I'm a Godzilla fan, and there's great Godzilla stuff and great King Kong stuff in it. So,
all right, Dogman.
Horrible.
Dogman?
Luc Besson's new movie. Luc Besson is one of the worst directors of all time, and this is about a guy played by Caleb Landry Jones, who's a very strange actor. Let me just read what the plot is, and then we can just move on, because it's a terrible movie. But here's the plot. This is seriously the plot. As a child, Douglas was abused by a violent father who threw him to the dogs, and instead of attacking him, the dogs protected him. Traumatized and leading a life on the margins of society with his dogs, Douglas descends into murderous madness with his dogs.
Yeah, I'm out.
Okay.
Done.
Yeah.
The Steve Martin documentary.
Okay.
Please
here's the
say
thing.
you like it. Please say you like it.
Here's the thing. I don't. Here's the thing. It's in two halves as advertised, and it drops today. It's streaming today on Apple TV. Okay, The guy who directed is Morgan Neville, who's actually made a few really good documentaries, including 20 Feet from Stardom, which is about backup singers in...
just phenomenal.
Really, really good. And he's done a lot of really good. Okay, I don't know what his thought process here was. He split it into two. So the first part of the Steve Martin documentary is about his early years, about
takes him up to the stadium shows?
Stand-up. Well, it goes up to 1980 when he quit. When he quit stand-up and went directly into movies. And then the second half is him now reflecting on his life in the movies and being a playwright. And his new wife, his new much younger wife.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, well, here's the problem. At the top of my head, tell me if this affects it. He's a bad interview.
Well, okay, here's the thing. For me, the most interesting stuff that Steve Martin did and the stuff that made him a comedy god for me, he did in the 60s and 70s. Mm-hmm. All the stuff he did after that, when he started making movies, he doesn't make good movies. Parenthood is not a good movie. Father of the Bride is not a good movie. They're conventional and they're crap.
No, they're paycheck movies. Yeah. But L.A. Story is a funny movie.
L.A. Story is fine and Roxanne is fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. But he's never done anything remotely as interesting or as revolutionary as what he did in the 60s and 70s.
Completely agree.
So in the first half of this, the first part where they cover that, the movie is weirdly like there's nonstop circus music and weird animation, and they don't interview anybody, and it's all done with weird like film, and they kind of like do it as like an afterthought. All this revolutionary, incredible, important stuff that he did in the world of comedy is in like a cartoonish, let's imitate Terry Gilliam's animation from Python and not do anything deep. And then the second half, suddenly he shows up. And he's interviewed, and Martin Short shows up, and they're working together and all that stuff. And they show his wife, and they talk about his past, and they go through the movies. So the second half is an actual, real documentary, and it's about the part of his career that's not nearly as interesting as the first half, which is like a weird cartoon.
Is it 2-hour chunks?
It's 1 hour and 45. It's 3 hours. So it's an hour and 45. And the first hour and 45 is stylistically as annoying as you can possibly imagine.
Yeah, it sounds like you just blew it.
Two different.
It is two, but it's the same director.
Different.
It
sounds like you blew it.
And the second half, because I put off watching the second half. I watched the first half, and I'm like, I can't. The same thing. I was so angry, and then I started to watch the second half, and like immediately he's making poached eggs in the first scene, and you're like, oh wait,
here he is.
So this is different, and then it's no longer voiceovers, there's no longer cartoon, and it's taking it very seriously. And it's the second half of his career, and it's not nearly as interesting as the first half. But it does.
I mean, if you were going to do a doc in two parts of anything in pop culture, the Eagles documentary, I know you hate the Eagles.
I do.
But the Eagles documentary done a few years ago was fabulous.
Yeah.
And the timing was great because they split it up from the break in 80 after the long run, brought them back, and showed the growth in the band, the continued dysfunction, all this. This is a guy trying to be artistic. But didn't Steve Martin get Final Cut?
But wouldn't he have said like this is how he views is how he views it?
Well,
so I view my first part of my career not as important as the second part.
Well, I don't know how much he had to do with. I don't know how much Final Cut he had. But the first part of this movie, and Steve, when you see it, because you know the history of this guy's career. So the first part of this movie, they talk about all this great stuff that he did, and then suddenly there's the jerk. But that's not what happened.
Not at all.
And they do not mention the absent-minded waiter. They do not mention that. And it's important in his career because it was nominated for an Academy Award. He wrote it. It's a short film. It's the first movie he ever did.
Yeah, it's great.
And it's not even mentioned. It's not even mentioned.
That's bizarre.
And all the stuff that they do mention is accompanied by weird music and sound effects, like it's a cartoon.
It's making me angry.
It is. No, it made me angry. But the second half, there's a lot of great stuff in the second half.
All right,
there
Apple
really
TV.
is.
All
But
right,
it's very disappointing.
I got 1 minute here, and I want to dedicate it to you talking about your Classic Cinema series, classiccinemas.com/Nick.
I used to do a thing called the Nick Digilio Film Club. Once a month, I would pick a movie and host it, and I'm doing it again. I was approached by the people at Classic Cinemas. I hosted a screening of John Carpenter's Starman last month, and we had a huge crowd. So they're like, why don't we do this once a month? So at the Lake Theater in Oak Park, you can come and see movies the second Wednesday of each month. I'm hosting it. I'm picking the movies. We'll show the movie together, and we'll hang out and talk afterwards. And the movies that I'm showing, they're all on sale now. The first 4 are on sale. So it's the first one is in May, and that's Walter Hill Streets of Fire. The second one is The Who's Tommy with you get to see Oliver Reed and Jack Nicholson sing, and Anne Margaret roll around in baked beans,
which is not bad.
And then The Warriors, and by the way, I'll have cast members via Zoom from The Warriors.
Great
and
movie.
then in August, The China Syndrome. And it's $9 for adults, $7 for seniors and kids.
You can't get anything for that.
It's in the XQ theaters, which is kind of like IMAX, and they're big. It's beautiful. You
$9,
can go to.
you can't get a pound of turkey for sandwiches
You
at the
can't.
deli for $9.
You can't, actually.
But if you go to classiccinemas.com/Nick, all 4 movies are on sale now. Let's pack the place. We're going to have a great time. So it's classiccinemas.com/Nick.
Easy.
And it's Streets of
7th?
Fire. May 8th is the first one. Streets of Fire, and then Tommy, The Warriors with the stars of The Warriors there in Zoom, and then China Syndrome. So classiccinemas.com/Nick, and all 4 of those movies are on sale now.
You, you get the movie,
Thanks,
you
man.
get Nick, you get a good time,
Yeah.
and it's all it's
all right there.
$9. Easy.
It's all right there.
Yeah.
Everything you need.
All right, thanks, buddy.
Thank you.